My name is Margaret Sinclair, and I am 58 years old. Until today, I thought I knew the hearts of my family. Standing in the sterile office of a lawyer, a chill ran through me, wrapping around my spine like a viper. The scent of antiseptic filled the air, mingling with a sense of dread as I held the will of my late husband in my trembling hands. Every word printed on that page felt like a betrayal, a knife buried deep within my heart. As I read the document, comprehension dawned slowly, terror mixing with disbelief. William, my only son, had manipulated everything I once thought to be secure. "Margaret, I hope you can find it in your heart to understand," he said nonchalantly, his smug demeanor all too familiar, like a cold embrace from an old friend. Beside him, Jessica observed, her expression an artful mask of false concern, but her satisfaction was palpable. My mind raced back to all those years spent sacrificing my own dreams. Countless nights I worked 2 jobs to ensure William had everything he needed: a decent education, new clothes, the occasional toy that would make his eyes light up. And this was the reward for my love, a will that stripped me of my dignity as a mother. "William, how could you do this to your own mother?" I whispered, barely able to contain the anger fluttering in my chest. The warmth of grief and rage intertwined, burning brighter as the absurdity of it all sank in. "Mom, it's all for the best," he replied, dismissing my pain with an infuriating wave of his hand as if my sacrifices were nothing more than trivial burdens. Jessica leaned in, her voice sugary and smooth, managing to provoke an even deeper wound. "We just want stability for the family. You should be grateful for what you have, honestly." Gratitude? For what? A life reduced to nothing by the very people I had nurtured. I stared at the photographs lining the walls, images of birthdays, holidays, past gatherings filled with laughter and love. Those flashbacks burned on the edges of my mind as they twisted into reminders of how little my worth had been recognized. The man I devoted myself to had left me nothing but a cold room and an empty feeling. I tried to block out the noise, pushing their voices to the back of my mind, but my body betrayed me, shaking as the reality sank deeper. Jessica's plastic smile warped into a sneer, and William's way of shoving a knife into my back felt chillingly satisfying to them. A lump formed in my throat. I forced it down, refusing to let them see my vulnerability as the anger morphed into a quiet determination. They thought they could take everything from me, but I was born with the strength to reclaim it all. I took a deep breath, steadying my hands as I laid the will back down on the lawyer's desk, my mind racing. It was time to change the narrative, to rise from this pit of despair they had thrown me into. The humiliation was sharp, but I could harness it, using it as a catalyst rather than a demise. As I looked back up at William and Jessica, I resolved to play the role of the broken mother for now. I wanted them to underestimate me, to think they had won this battle. Their arrogance would be their downfall. Beneath my calm exterior bubbled the fierce resolve to take back everything I had lost. In that moment of silent strength, I made a promise to myself. I would uncover the truth and fight for my rightful inheritance. I would not be a passive victim. Yet, as I left the office, thoughts churned within me like a storm, my heart heavy yet boiling under the surface. I couldn't help but glance one last time at my son's indifferent smile, a reminder of the chasm that had formed between us. Please confirm if you would like to proceed with Section 2, Exile and Memories. The days following that fateful meeting dragged on like a lengthy winter, each one colder than the last. I returned home to a small, cluttered room that seemed to echo the sorrow I felt within. It wasn't merely the physical space that had shrunk around me. It felt as if my spirit, once so vibrant, had been confined, diminished by the betrayal that shattered my family. Sitting on the edge of my unmade bed, I gazed out the window, watching the trees sway in the wind. They seemed so free, dancing in the cool air, while I remained immobile, trapped by chains forged by my own family. My heart ached on quiet afternoons as sunlight streamed through the cracks, illuminating the dust swirling in the air. Those golden rays formed a cruel contrast against the bitter reality that enveloped me. Countless memories flooded back, vibrant snapshots of a time when laughter filled our home, a time I clung to desperately. I remembered William as a boy, bright-eyed and ambitious, chasing dreams like fireflies on warm summer nights. I had done everything to nurture those ambitions, sacrificing my own in the process. The late nights spent doubling my shifts at the diner, the moments of missed joy and family vacations when I stayed behind to make ends meet. All of it had been for him, believing that my efforts would ensure his success and happiness. But now, those sacrifices felt foolish and underappreciated. To make matters worse, those memories now taunted me, warping into a reflection of how little I meant to the very people I had devoted my life to. I sat among mementos of Christmases and birthdays, the vivid colors now fading, much like the trust I had bestowed upon my son and daughter-in-law. I sifted through the clutter of our lives, wedding invitations tucked inside aging books, faded children's drawings, remnants of celebrations now tainted by their betrayal. The remnants of our collective history became almost unbearable, tugging painfully at my heartstrings. I fought against the tide of memories, the realization that every photograph was a reminder of misplaced trust, a trust that led to this painful moment of revelation. I remembered the warmth of those gatherings, the aroma of holiday dinners wafting through the air, always punctuated by laughter. William had been the star, the brilliant light in our small family constellation. There was joy in watching him grow, and in those moments, I felt rich. Richer than any bank account could make me. But as time passed, it became increasingly clear that for Jessica, the joy of family was merely a stepping stone. On particularly dreary days, I would curl up in the corner of my room, clutching a worn blanket, the faded fabric reminding me of happier times. I found myself revisiting memories like an old film reel, painfully aware that the comfort I once felt was rapidly fading. I could still hear William's excited chatter as we worked late together on his homework, the warmth of love wrapping around us like a protective cloak. Yet that protection had become thin, fraying at the edges. "Do you realize what you've thrown away, William?" I scolded silently to the empty room. The weight of grief and betrayal settled heavily. How could the love I had nurtured for so many years morph into such a stark betrayal? I knew that I could never regain the trust I had lost, but a fire began to spark anew within my chest. Understanding that I needed to stop reliving my pain, I vowed to forge a new path for myself. The days turned into weeks, the rhythm of dull sadness beating steadily inside my soul. I began to ponder how I had let them distort my reality, allowing their selfish ambitions to overshadow my identity as a mother. But deep within, there lay an ember of hope, a whisper urging me to rise again, to push through the disappointment, to claw my way back to my own truth. One rainy afternoon, while cleaning out an old box of documents in the back of my closet, something caught my eye. It was a key. Not just any key, but one stamped with the insignia of the bank where my late husband had maintained a safety deposit box. Memories of him flooded over me, bittersweet and sharp, reminding me of his wisdom in protecting our family's legacy. My heart raced as I recalled the night he had carefully hidden that key, knowing it would one day serve a purpose. With hands trembling, I searched for the book in which I remembered he had secreted the key. As I combed through the yellowing pages, the cover cracked a little, revealing the wear of years, a history I was ready to reclaim. When my fingers finally brushed against the cool metal, a shiver ran down my spine. This was my lifeline. I allowed a moment of vulnerability, but soon my resolve ignited anew. I dashed to the living room to retrieve my phone, dialing Mr. Harrison, the old lawyer who had handled our family affairs for years. The conversation felt frenetic as I explained my recent discoveries and the mounting sense of urgency within me. "Margaret," he said, his voice warm and reassuring, "I will assist you in any way I can. Your husband was indeed very thorough. Let's meet at the bank and see what treasures lie in wait." After hanging up, I sat back against the creaky doorframe, taking a moment to absorb the implication of our meeting. Excitement coursed through me with each passing minute, transforming the heaviness in my heart into a renewed sense of determination. I felt like a soldier preparing for battle. The fight for my dignity required an arsenal of strategy and knowledge. I stared out the window once more, watching raindrops race down the glass, each one a reminder of the journey I was about to embark on. The promise of reclaiming my own narrative, one that had been so cruelly rewritten by the very people I loved. If you're enjoying this journey with me, please show your support by sending super stickers. Your fun and colorful contributions keep this channel alive and help me bring you more stories of resilience and justice. With every fiber of my being, I was ready to transform pain into a catalyst for change. The strength I had cultivated over the years would not be in vain. The fight for what was rightfully mine was only just beginning. Please confirm if you'd like to proceed with Section 3, The Secret Discovery. That evening, anticipation thrummed beneath my skin as I replayed the details of my conversation with Mr. Harrison. The cool metal key felt heavy against the warmth of my palm, my fingers tracing its engraved surface like a comfort and a promise all at once. Memories of my husband enveloped my heart, a gentle reminder of the love we had shared and the legacy he had fought so hard to secure. I glanced at the clock, strained seconds stretching into minutes, and finally decided to jot down a list of questions I wanted to ask him during our meeting. I knew I needed to be prepared to seize the initiative. The excitement was palpable as I approached the bank the following day, its polished granite facade shining like a beacon of hope. Located in the heart of the city, it had been our family bank for years. The frosted glass doors adorned with the bank's golden emblem welcomed me, but I felt a surge of anxiety ripple through me. What treasures, or possibly more betrayals, lay within my reach? Stepping over the threshold, I inhaled the crisp, sterile air infused with the faint scent of polished wood. The bank's interior gleamed under a gentle overhead glow, reminiscent of moods and moments once shared here with my family. I looked around, noting the young receptionist with bright red lipstick who greeted me with a professional but slightly disinterested smile. Her focus was on the chatter of clients, completely unaware of the emotional storm brewing beneath the surface of my calm demeanor. "I'm here to meet Mr. Harrison," I said, my voice steady despite the fluttering of nerves in my stomach. She gestured toward the waiting area, and as I perched uneasily on the edge of a leather chair, I felt my breath become shallow with anticipation. The clock ticked ominously, each sound drumming a crescendo of doubt in my mind. When Mr. Harrison finally appeared, he carried himself with a reassuring air of composure. In his late 60s, with a mane of silver hair and a demeanor that radiated warmth, he felt like a soothing balm for my nerves. "Margaret," he said, his voice rich with familiarity, "I'm glad you called. Let's get started." I followed him down the back hallway, the fluorescent lights buzzing softly above us. I felt a jolt of adrenaline course through me as we walked toward a door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Behind it lay a realm filled with possibility that could alter my future forever. Inside, the vault's air was surprisingly cool, a contrast to the weight of anticipation resting on my shoulders. The metallic scent mingled with the musty aroma of old paperwork, evoking dark yet tantalizing thoughts of secrets best left hidden. Rows of safety deposit boxes lined the walls. Each one was a mysterious puzzle waiting to be unraveled. Mr. Harrison pulled out a keychain adorned with many tiny metal keys, and my excitement threatened to spill over like an erupting volcano. "Which number was it again?" he asked, his fingers gliding through the ledger like a seasoned detective sifting through clues. I pointed to the box that matched the engraving on my key, and he nodded, expertly retrieving the corresponding box. As he lifted the lid, a wave of dust billowed out, momentarily obscuring the contents. I leaned closer, a mix of trepidation and eagerness swirling within me. After so many years of uncertainty and betrayal, I was on the brink of revealing something monumental, and part of me feared what I might find. Inside the box lay several folders, most yellowed with age, and a few personal items: a wristwatch, its face cracked yet still gleaming, and a bundle of letters tied with a faded ribbon. My hands trembled as I reached out, pulling the letters closer. They weren't just pieces of paper. They were fragments of my husband's life and the secrets he had harbored. "What do you think?" Mr. Harrison asked, his voice soothing as he remained slightly behind me, allowing me the space to process the moment. "I need a moment," I managed to reply, my reply barely above a breath as a swell of emotion surged within me. I needed to understand what these letters meant, what they revealed, not only about my husband, but also about the deceit that enveloped my family like a thick fog. As the first letter unfurled in my hands, I felt the weight of betrayal raining down upon me. Each inked syllable forced me to confront the connection that had existed between my husband and Jessica. My chest tightened and my breath quickened. The words depicted not just friendship, but an intimacy that sliced through my heart like a sharpened blade. With each unfolding letter, my mind filled with rapid-fire questions and emotions. How could he let this go on under my very nose? Had I been so blind, so lost in my own faith in our family, that I had ignored the signals? I turned the pages rapidly, feeling dizzy from all the revelations etched in penmanship that had been a secret language between them. Rising, I forced myself to breathe deeply, balancing the cascade of discovery playing out in my mind. I needed clarity. I needed to think. "Mr. Harrison," I said, turning to him, "we must discuss the implications of what I've just uncovered. There's more to this than financial matters. I want every resource available to me, not just for my inheritance, but for the truth that needs telling." He nodded in acknowledgement, his expression shifting to a more professional demeanor. "Absolutely, Margaret. It appears you hold significant leverage now, both legally and emotionally. We must tread carefully, as knowledge is powerful, but it must be wielded wisely." As I gathered my thoughts, I felt a profound shift within myself. It was no longer a quest for survival. It had transformed into a journey of empowerment. I had unearthed a hidden treasure indeed, a treasure of self-worth and vindication. I was ready to confront the wrongs in my life and reclaim the narrative they had stolen from me. With fire in my belly and clarity in my mind, I prepared to step into the fray, ready to confront both my son and Jessica with the truth of their duplicity. They believed my love was a weakness. They had miscalculated. Armed with this newfound knowledge, I felt a resolve that ran deeper than the pain I had experienced. Before I left the bank, I tucked the letters securely into my bag, their weight grounding me as I felt the power of my evolving narrative. As I stepped outside, the sun broke through the gray clouds, casting warm rays upon my face. It felt as if the universe was aligning in my favor. And with that sense of the world shifting, I knew that this story, my story, was now firmly in my hands again. As the path ahead unveiled itself, I felt a sense of direction replacing the chaos that once enveloped my life. I was ready to forge ahead, ready to reclaim my identity and dignity, forged in the bitter trials of betrayal. Please confirm if you would like to proceed with Section 4, Silent Investigation. My heart raced as I returned home, clutching the letters in my bag like sought-after treasures. As I stepped through the door, the familiar creak of the floorboards beneath my feet felt completely alien now. This was the first step of my investigation, one that required subtlety and cunning. I had unearthed a narrative that demanded my attention, and I could no longer afford to be passive in my own life. Setting the letters aside for the moment, I took a deep breath, my body acutely aware of the bitterness that had settled in my chest. I needed to formulate a plan, and that began with careful observation. I started with Jessica and William's daily routines, their interactions, and their network of acquaintances. All the little threads woven together that could tell me more about their deception. Over the next few days, I perfected the art of the unseen. From my post on the couch, I began to observe their patterns, the comings and goings of characters included in this unfolding drama. William was often preoccupied with work, spending long hours on the phone, and Jessica would call him at odd times, seemingly just to share fleeting snippets of her day. A chilling reality began to anchor itself in my heart. I would not be the passive player in my own life. I dove into a research phase that transformed me into an amateur investigator. I gathered information bit by bit, piecing together the puzzle of their lives with the precision of an artisan hitting the keynotes of a symphony. I dusted off my laptop, the device that had grown dusty alongside dreams deferred. As I entered search details into the search engine, my fingers danced across the keyboard, pulling up social media profiles, public records, and news articles connected to Jessica and her connections. The more I uncovered, the more disillusioned I felt. I realized I had been blinded not by love, but by a desire to maintain the fragile facade we all had lived under. The delusions I had allowed them to craft were now unraveling thread by thread. One evening, as I combed through photographs of Jessica that had been tagged through various acquaintances, I noted a pattern in the way she presented herself, a curated life framed through glamour and seduction, layered beneath the superficiality of it all. I scrolled through images showcasing her standing too close to my son, and I felt my heart constrict with each poignant click of the mouse. Then it clicked. She was in league not only with William but also with his friends, individuals I had once welcomed into our home with a smile on my face. Underneath their laughter and playful banter lay a conspiratorial bond. The more I dug, the deeper the secrets seemed to run. I decided I needed evidence, proof to not only confront them with, but to expose their betrayal to those who had remained in the dark. Faithful friends, our community, even distant relatives. I began drafting a repository of information, a file containing every pertinent detail I could gather, texts, emails, photographs, anything that could lend weight to my claims. I needed to be strategic and decisive, armed with knowledge as my weapon. On the 5th evening of my quiet investigation, I received an unexpected boost in momentum. Photos surfaced on an online gossip page regarding a recent party that William and Jessica had attended together. These photographs displayed them laughing, their expressions intimate, close dances that made the implications all too clear. I felt a chill flicker across my skin. This was my opening. Through careful editing of images, I highlighted moments, like the way he leaned in to whisper something, the warmth of their smiles that ignited like a fire in a frosty winter. I saved each significant moment onto a folder labeled Evidence. This marked the change. I was now the arbiter of my own story. Among the vivid snapshots, I noticed something peculiar. The party had been sponsored by the same company William worked for. That revelation tinged my sense of purpose with an urgency I hadn't quite anticipated. I had enough material to craft a narrative that reached beyond personal grievances. This could reflect on their collective professional lives. I envisioned the fallout that would echo through their circle, the friends who trusted them shattered by the reality lurking under the guise of normality. The following weekend, I made my way to my friend Linda's house, where she'd invited me for tea. Linda had always been a confidant, a source of solace throughout the tumult of my marriage's decline. I needed someone who could stand beside me in this whirlwind. Arriving at her quaint home, I was enveloped in the familiar aroma of chamomile. As we settled into cozy chairs, I cautiously began sharing fragments of my ordeal, the betrayal, the letters, and the evidence I had gathered. She nodded, her expression steadily transforming from pity to indignation. "Margaret," she said, her voice adamant, "you deserve to stand your ground. You deserve your truth to emerge." I felt a surge of gratitude mixed with immense courage. Linda promised to keep my discovery a secret, swearing loyalty like a sister. She suggested we compile a detailed timeline of events reflecting not only William and Jessica's deceitful alliances, but also their interactions with other people who had claimed to champion our family. Encouraged by her support, I felt emboldened. We spent hours drafting this timeline, piecing together the many threads of betrayal that had been so shrouded in secrecy. Each note felt like a step toward healing. Each revelation was not merely fuel for revenge. It was a way of acknowledging my worth and reclaiming my dignity. Days turned into nights, and as I pored over notes and evidence, my purpose solidified within me. I was no longer a witness or a passive participant. I was the author of my own redemption story. If you're enjoying this journey with me, please consider sending a super chat to support the channel. Your heartfelt contributions help me continue sharing these powerful stories. Every super chat makes a real difference. As my silent investigation progressed, I could feel the once familiar echoes of helplessness dissipating. I was reborn, a phoenix rising from the ashes of betrayal. My spirit began to awaken, driven by an unyielding desire for clarity and justice. As I charted this complex landscape of deception, I found strength. The winds of change were swirling around me, all leading to the inevitable confrontation with those who had stolen my voice. I looked forward with anticipation. Soon enough, the tables would turn, and justice would have its day. Please confirm if you would like to proceed with Section 5, the Justice Plan. As dawn broke on the horizon, I found myself perched at the kitchen table with scattered notes around me, the remnants of sleepless nights trailing through my thoughts. My heart raced in anticipation. The strands of my carefully crafted plan were coming together, each one a vital thread weaving a tapestry of accountability. I was determined to craft my justice, not from the bonds of revenge, but rather to reclaim my dignity and restore my sense of self-worth. I could feel the weight of purpose anchoring me. A new chapter was about to begin. With every detail I'd meticulously gathered from my silent investigation, I could finally envision the conflicts that lay ahead. I took a deep breath, channeling my fear into focus. It was time to outline how I would confront both William and Jessica, not with rage but with clarity and determination. I needed them to understand the depth of their betrayal, the pain that followed their choices, and the unity I had cultivated through the truth. The following days were spent mapping out a strategy that involved not just confrontation, but also a way to bring their deceit to light. I made each realization part of a framework that I could share with others, friends and family who had stood by me, who needed to witness the truth I had uncovered. I reached out to several of William's close friends, creating an illusion of camaraderie. When speaking with them, I played the role of the concerned wife, who merely wished to understand more about her husband's recent behavior. I could hear the dismissive tones in their voices, brush-offs disguising worries. "It's just work stress," they'd say, but I could sense the tension in their responses, hints that suggested a deeper divide, something perhaps they had figured out long before I had. It was a part of the plan. Each interaction was data, evidence that would strengthen my standing. One afternoon, while I was typing up summaries of my findings, Linda texted me. "I have a plan for us to meet with your friends. I believe they deserve to hear your story." The thought of gathering my allies, sharing my truth, made nerves flutter in my stomach. "Absolutely. Let's make this happen," I replied, my fingers trembling slightly over the screen. Each exchange felt like a step closer to unveiling the tapestry of deception that had been cleverly woven around me. That weekend, I selected a cafe that had been a favorite haunt of ours once upon a time, filled with cozy corners and warm pictures hanging on the walls, images of laughter and the aroma of fresh espresso swirling in the air. It was both familiar and a little out of reach, much like the life I used to know. When Linda and I arrived, I felt anxiety creep in, maybe just a ghost of the memories that echoed through the vibrant space. As friends gathered, old acquaintances who knew both William and me, a wave of familiarity washed over me. It energized me, creating a collective spirit in the air. Each voice held a spark of support, and when the discussion turned serious, it was my moment to speak. "Thank you all for coming," I began, my heart pounding against my chest like a drum. "I have something deeply personal to share, and I want you to hear it from me." I felt their eyes turn toward me, warm yet expectant. I dived in, weaving through the rich fabric of my story, the unraveling of trust that had become my daily reality. I recounted my discoveries, the letters, the late-night conversations, and the precarious connection between William and Jessica. I watched them absorb the weight of my words, their expressions shifting from surprise to outrage. When I finished, the room erupted into a chorus of disbelief and anger. "I can't believe they'd betray you like that," one friend exclaimed, his fists clenched in frustration. "You deserve better than this." Their reactions bolstered my courage. I felt renewed in sharing the complexities of loyalty and betrayal in our relationships. I outlined my plan for confronting William and Jessica together, armed with my evidence. It felt liberating to finally have allies. I was no longer alone. The friends leaned in, supportive and ready to stand beside me. Linda played a crucial role in steering our conversations. She had a knack for rallying support, ensuring everyone felt validated in their concerns. Together, we worked through my timeline, refining it into a cohesive narrative that would expose the web of lies woven between us and the facade they had erected. As plans solidified for the confrontation, I felt an unwavering conviction settle in my heart. I envisioned the scene, an evening gathering where both William and Jessica would be present, the weight of truth laid bare before them. I would deliver my findings gently but firmly, making sure they understood the impact of their actions on those around them. On the day of the confrontation, I chose my outfit carefully, a tailored dress paired with heels that added an extra inch of poise to my stature. I wanted to feel empowered, dignified, and ready to stand my ground. With a flurry of thoughts dancing in my mind, I took one last glance in the mirror before heading to the venue where everything would unfold. As I entered the dimly lit room, the familiar faces greeted me with warm smiles, or so I thought. I scanned the room, spotting William laughing with friends, Jessica nearby, flipping her hair casually, as if everything was perfectly normal. The sight filled me with a mix of nerves and determination. They had no idea what was about to happen. If you're enjoying this journey with me, please show your support by sending super stickers. Your fun and colorful contributions keep this channel alive and help me share more stories of resilience and justice. Before I approached them, I took a moment to gather my courage, to remind myself of the power I now held, the strength to tell my truth. This encounter would be the turning point, the moment that would redefine the narrative of my life and bring light to the injustices I had suffered. As I walked towards William and Jessica, resolved and undaunted, I prepared to unleash the torrent of truth I had gathered. All the strength I'd cultivated through my silent investigation surged within me. I was ready to reclaim my story. Please confirm if you would like to proceed with Section 6, Confrontation and Downfall. As I approached William and Jessica, a strange calm washed over me, a stark contrast to the tempest of emotions swirling beneath the surface. My heart pounded with anticipation, and I took a deep breath, centering myself for what was to come. The room buzzed with chatter, but the world around me quickly faded. It was just the three of us, poised on the edge of revelation. "Can we talk?" I asked, my voice steady, cutting through the ambient noise. William's face morphed from confusion to recognition, a flicker of unease flickering behind his eyes. Jessica stood beside him, her lips twisting into a teasing smirk as if she knew a game was about to unfold. "Sure, what is it?" William replied, feigning casual indifference, but I could see his pulse quicken. It was as if he sensed the gravity of the moment looming just behind me. I motioned for them to follow me toward a quieter corner of the room, where the warm light softened the edges of my resolve. The surrounding laughter and cheer faded as I turned to face them, a carefully rehearsed calm radiating from my posture. "Both of you need to hear what I've found out," I began, holding their gaze steadfastly. William looked as if he wanted to jump in, but I pressed forward. "It's about your relationship, this facade you've both been so keen on maintaining." A wave of energy rippled between us, their smiles faltering as I detected the shift in their expressions. The denial and confusion clouded their features, and for a moment, I felt a flicker of pity. But I couldn't back down. Justice demanded that I forge ahead. "Jessica, I have letters from my husband," I continued, feeling the strength of my voice resolve into a commanding tone. "Letters that reveal the depth of your deceit." I reached into my bag and pulled out a few printed copies, knowing they were more than just words on paper. They were the fragments of betrayal that would shatter their world. "Margaret, you're being dramatic," Jessica scoffed, tossing her hair over her shoulder. But the confidence in her voice felt shaky, an assurance slowly unraveling under the weight of my words. I placed the letters on the table between us, each word silent yet provocative, delivering a measured yet lethal blow. "Dramatic. This is your life too. How could you spin this web around our family like it was a game? I trusted you, both of you." William's eyes widened. An unmistakable flicker of panic replaced the mockery that once danced there. "You're misunderstanding everything. There's nothing going on between us." He tried to project confidence, but it came off as desperate, and I could feel his walls shattering in real time. "No, William, I'm not misunderstanding anything," I said, meeting his gaze with unwavering strength as the storm of emotions roiled within me. "You've betrayed not only me, but our family." I watched you become lost in the embrace of someone who was supposed to be a friend. Jessica's bravado crumbled as the weight of my confrontation began to sink in. I didn't mean for it to go that far, she stammered, her cheeks flushing with a shade of pink that clashed with the cool confidence she had declared a mere moment ago. Didn't mean for it to go that far, I echoed incredulously. You both had a choice every single day to either act with integrity or continue this charade. You chose deceit. Margaret, I can explain. William started, desperation bubbling to the surface, but I cut him off. There's nothing to explain, I exclaimed, my voice echoing through the confined space. You've made your choices, and I have made mine. I've gathered evidence. This isn't about retaliation. It's about me reclaiming my life, bringing the truth to light for everyone who deserves to know. Eyebrows knitted, Jessica's helplessness became all too evident as she held the letters in her hands. The reality of their betrayal reflected in her eyes. It was as if the ambition painting her world had been stripped bare, rendering her as vulnerable as ever. I won't stand by and let you destroy what's left of our family, Margaret. William shot back, desperation weaving through his defensive stance. This will ruin everything. Everything you built on lies, William, I countered, an ironclad conviction grounding my stance. You've destroyed our family long before I ever showed these letters. This is not my destruction, it's yours. A silence enveloped the room, every breath echoing the truth I'd unearthed. The people around us slowly began to steer their attention toward our moment of confrontation, magnetized by the tension that pulsed through the air. Whispers began to ripple through the crowd, a ripple that felt almost liberating. Suddenly, I felt a surge of power take hold. The truth isn't just for me. It's for everyone who deserves to know who you really are. I'll be sharing this with our friends and family. Everything, I declared, the momentum of my words stirring a sense of justice that radiated through me. The finality of my declaration hung in the air, thick with the acceptance that had taken me too long to realize. I turned on my heel and began to leave, but just before I walked away, I glanced back at them one last time. I hope you'll think about the real cost of betrayal. As I stepped away, I could hear a flurry of murmurs enveloping the gathering. The fabric of their recorded history was fraying, and I felt a sense of liberation washing over me. I knew I had started a chain reaction that would pull apart the carefully assembled walls of denial they had erected. Everyone in that room could witness the unraveling of their facades. Did you feel that sense of justice? If this story moved you, show your appreciation by clicking the "Thanks a lot" super thanks button. Your generous support keeps this channel going and helps me bring you more stories of courage and triumph. As I exited into the cool night air, I recognized the victory and clarity. I had stepped out of the shadows and reclaimed my narrative, not just through confrontation, but through a renewed belief in my strength. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but it would be my own. This was only the beginning, an opening chapter in a narrative that promised transformation. I realized that I was more than just a woman standing against betrayal. I was a warrior, a survivor, and now, an unapologetic architect of my own destiny. Please confirm if you would like to proceed with Section 7, New Life. In the weeks following that pivotal confrontation, I felt a powerful shift within me. I was not only shedding the weight of betrayal, but also stepping boldly into a new chapter. Each day held promise, a chance to forge a path free from the shadows of my past. I immersed myself in rebuilding my world, reconnecting with friends I had neglected during my marriage. Their support enveloped me like a warm blanket, reminding me of the love that still existed outside the confines of betrayal. It felt invigorating to reclaim pieces of myself that had been lost, nurturing passions that I once set aside. With renewed energy, I launched a blog to share my journey of healing. Each post became a sanctuary where I explored the intricacies of betrayal and the beauty of reclaiming one's life. I wanted to provide solace to others who felt trapped or voiceless. With each keystroke, I unearthed layers of my story, feeling the burdens lift as I wrote of resilience and growth. The response was overwhelming. Readers reached out, sharing their own tales of heartache and strength. What began as a solitary venture transformed into a supportive community, a space for the exchange of experiences and the empowerment of voices long silenced. During those darkest days, I found a framework that changed everything for me. The complete guide I followed is outlined in the first comment below. It might help if you're facing something similar. As my blog gained momentum, I realized I could turn my vision into action by organizing small support groups for women facing similar struggles. The idea of creating a safe space for shared experiences ignited a passion in me, and soon enough, I was planning gatherings where women could find solidarity and encouragement. One quiet evening, I received a message from William, his desperation palpable through the screen. There was a time when this might have unraveled me, but now I approached it from a place of strength. I replied, "I appreciate your message, but I need time to heal. I am building a new life for myself and cannot revisit the past." His stream of apologies felt insincere, weighed down by the same guilt that once haunted me. I realized I no longer needed his affirmation. My worth was no longer tied to his approval. As my world blossomed anew, I embraced experiences that fueled my growth. I decorated my home with bright colors and laughter, creating a sanctuary that reflected my rebirth. The vibrancy of my surroundings mirrored the transformation within. I felt lighter, freer, grateful for the journey I had undertaken. Then, reflecting on my accomplishments during one sunlit afternoon, a profound realization washed over me. I had evolved into someone who no longer allowed the shadows of the past to dictate my destiny. The person in the mirror was a warrior, brave and unyielding. With each blog post I wrote, I felt empowered by the impact of my words, envisioning a future rich with purpose. I was rewriting the narrative of my life, one filled with stories of courage and inspiration. My story doesn't end here. If you want to see what happens next, follow this channel and leave a like. Your support means everything. As I finished my latest entry, a sense of fulfillment filled my heart. I whispered a vow to honor my journey and continue rising, just as the sun does after every night. I knew the scars from my past would remain, but they no longer defined me. Instead, they became testament to my strength and resilience. In that moment, beneath the expansive sky, I realized the most crucial lesson of all. Betrayal can give birth to rebirth, and the power to write your own story lies in your hands. This was my new life, one I crafted with intention and hope, ready to embrace the future unfolding before me. The end. They thought they had left me with nothing. They thought they had left me with nothing.